By March 1974, the Apollo missions had put men on the moon, and global trade was booming. Yet deep in the rain-soaked jungle of the Philippines, a man in a tattered uniform stood perfectly still, gripping a meticulously polished rifle. For him, the calendar was still stuck in 1944. Hiro Onoda was a specialized intelligence officer for the Japanese Imperial Army. He was trained at the Nakano School to operate independently for years at a time, specifically prepared to survive far behind enemy lines without support. His training reflected the extreme militarized culture of Imperial Japan. At Nakano, officers were drilled on two absolute, unyielding directives. You are never allowed to surrender, and under no circumstances are you permitted to take your own life. With those orders, Onoda was deployed to Lubang Island. His mission was to disrupt enemy supply lines and destroy infrastructure, holding the territory until the Imperial Army returned, no matter how many years it took. This specialized training prioritized absolute obedience over the instinct for self-preservation. By removing the option of surrender from his tactical vocabulary, the military ensured Onoda would remain at his post indefinitely. In August 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan capitulated, and World War II formally ended on the deck of the USS Missouri. However, there was no radio contact and no formal courier to deliver that news to the interior of Lubang Island. Without a direct counter-order from his superiors, Onoda continued to follow his original mission to disrupt and destroy. As the global conflict moved into the history books, Onoda's reality narrowed into a singular, solitary battle against the elements and his own standing orders. The physical reality of Lubang Island was punishing. With no permanent shelter, Onoda was constantly exposed to torrential rains, typhoons, and thick foliage that trapped the humidity against the jungle floor. To avoid detection by local search parties, Onoda maintained a policy of constant movement. He slept on the ground and traveled at night to ensure no camp could be tracked. Survival required a strict daily routine. He subsisted on raw green bananas and coconuts, supplemented by rice stolen from local farms during nighttime waits. When his protein levels dropped, he would hunt local cows. He meticulously sun-dried the meat to create preserved rations that could last through the months when the police presence made hunting too dangerous. For 29 years, these tasks, scouting, preserving meat, and relocating, constituted the entirety of his existence. By repeating this cycle daily, Onoda maintained the same military discipline he had been ordered to observe in 1944. This timeline tracks the slow attrition of his small squad. In 1949, Akatsu surrendered. In 1954, Shimada was killed in a shootout with local police. Finally, in 1972, his last companion, Kozuka, was shot and killed. After 1972, Onoda was the only Japanese soldier left on the island. He was entirely alone. Search parties dropped thousands of leaflets, newspapers, and family photographs into the jungle. Onoda examined them all but dismissed them as enemy propaganda. He had been taught that the enemy would use sophisticated psychological warfare, so he interpreted every attempt at rescue as a deceptive trap. This suspicion turned deadly. Believing he was still at war, Onoda treated the local farmers and police as active combatants. Over his 3 decades in the jungle, he and his men killed over 30 civilians and injured more than 100 others. The same resilience that kept Onoda alive also ensured he remained a persistent threat. His strict refusal to accept the war's end led to decades of continued violence against the island's population. In 1974, a Japanese adventurer named Noriya Suzuki traveled to the island to find the ghost soldier. He located Onoda in just 4 days. Suzuki explained that Japan was now a modern, peaceful nation, but Onoda would not yield. He told Suzuki he would only surrender his weapons if he received a direct order from his superior officer. The Japanese government eventually located Onoda's former commander, Major Taniguchi, who was then working in a bookstore. They flew Taniguchi to Lubang Island, where he stood in the jungle and officially read the order for Onoda to cease all combat operations. Neither physical deprivation nor government appeals had changed Onoda's mind. He stayed at his post until the specific military authority that sent him there finally issued a countermand. Returning to Japan at age 52, Onoda encountered a society he didn't recognize. The imperial nation he had fought for was gone, replaced by a hyper-modern landscape of neon lights and high-tech consumerism. Though he was treated as a celebrity, he struggled to adjust to a culture that had moved on without him. Eventually, he left Japan for Brazil, where he spent the next chapter of his life as a cattle rancher. In 1996, he returned to Lubang Island. He donated $10,000 to a local scholarship fund, a final gesture toward the community that had suffered under his guerrilla attacks for nearly 30 years. Hiro Onoda outlasted the jungle and the elements through sheer endurance. Yet the ultimate cost was his youth. He spent his best years fighting a war that had ended before he even turned 24.